with more people in attendance. What have you been briefed to say about this? Good morning.
Morning. Look, I think what we've seen over the last couple of days, you've seen the Prime Minister announce that the Cabinet Secretary is going to look at three separate allegations, well, two allegations and one actual gathering in the Department of Education. And I think that's right to get to the bottom of it, to restore confidence, because the Prime Minister was assured that there were no rules broken. But with the further information and further discussion about this, it's right that the Cabinet Secretary looks at this to try and put this to bed, exactly what happened.
Noting you use the word gathering, Mr. Scully, when does a gathering become a party?
I've no idea, to be honest, because I don't know what happened then, but I can only speculate what may or may not have happened at these sort of places where people are working anyway. And so they're together on a day-to-day basis.
But why do you choose the word gathering as opposed to party?
Well, I suppose party suggests, you see some of the graphics that go around with some of the coverage here with balloons and poppers and these kind of things. It suggests that there's big invitations going out and lots of people coming in from elsewhere and those kind of things. So I think it's right to be proportionate until we know the detail.
Are we looking at the total number now of gatherings as 7?
To be honest, I don't know, Nick. I just read the kind of things that the media are covering, but what the Cabinet Secretary is looking at, he's looking at 3 separate events, and obviously, if there's credible evidence coming from anywhere else, he will look at that as well.
If it was a gathering, why did Allegra Stratton feel the need to go?
Well, I think the Prime Minister was clear about, as he described it, being furious at seeing the pictures there. And it is a difficult situation because we're coming into, we've announced Plan B. We've got a situation now where we are asking people to, again, have restrictions on what they can and can't do in terms of mask wearing, in terms of entering. And so it's important that we are respectful of people that have gone through so much over the last 19-20 months.
But why should the good folk of Sutton and Cheam, or my listeners, abide by these restrictions when clearly they don't within number 10 on possibly 7 occasions that we know of?
Well, as I say, the Prime Minister received assurances that no rules were broken at that time, but let's see what the Cabinet Secretary has to say about that. But the good people of Sutton and Cheam, and indeed across England and the UK, I would hope will do the right thing, because it will actually stop the spread of the Omicron virus. It will give us the breathing space to understand the effects of the Omicron virus, variant, better, so that we don't risk the further hospitalisations and swamping of the NHS. We don't risk further restrictions on the economy, which is the last thing with me as small businesses wants to see, and indeed as the business owners want to see.
Well, let's move on to Plan B. There do seem to be a few strange quirks being thrown up. One is that you can do your shopping in Sutton and Cheam at Sainsbury's or Asda or whatever, as long as you sing. And also, as of next week, you can't work at the office, but you can work from the pub. And you can't go to the office unless it's for the office party. Plan B has more holes than a Swiss cheese, doesn't it, Minister?
It's really difficult, but in terms of, look, the thing is about, if you're going around the supermarket singing, it actually does say you don't need to wear a mask. Wear a mask where practical. I don't think it's practical walking around Tesco's singing Christmas carols or something all the time. But there just needs to be a sense check around it if you're eating, if you're drinking, and those kind of things. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce connections. So basically, if people can work from home, that's avoiding the commute and other chance connections where they may be in contact with someone that I'm gone. But what we don't want to do is bear down heavily on hospitality again, for example, and start to shut down parts of the economy where we don't need to do so. It's a difficult balance, but it's one we've got to try and strike.
Indeed, but you can't go to the office, but you can go to the office party.
Well, again, that's, as I say, because if people can work from home, what that will avoid them doing is...
You can work from the pub, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're working for the pub, you can't work from home, so you'd be expected to be going into the pub as usual. There's many people that simply can't work from home, and we're just asking people where you can. So it's not a mandate. It's very much appealing to people to do the right thing.
Let's look at some other matters. In the course of this week, your party has dropped down 4 points. You're now 6 points behind the Labour Party, and there seems to be a growing Conservative revolt. How anxious are you about next week's vote on Plan B?
What we've got to do is to reassure colleagues that this is a difficult situation, but there have been significant changes actually since the original Plan B was announced. So things like the so-called vaccine passports are not vaccine passports because we've allowed a negative lateral flow test to be included as proof to get you entry, and that's really significant because we want people to get vaccinated, and we want people to get the booster because that is the single biggest weapon that we've got against coronavirus. But we're not mandating vaccination, and we're not cutting off entry to any of these things for people that can just have a test.
But just returning to my point, it's reported dozens of your colleagues, Conservative MPs, are ready to revolt over Plan B. My question again, how nervous are you about that? Suppose you lose the vote.
Well, I think
that would be curtains, wouldn't it, to the Prime Minister?
I think it's. I'm not sure we will lose the vote.
But if you were to lose the vote,
the Labour Party have said they want to go further, actually, than the measures that we're going for. So what we've got to explain to our colleagues that this is a proportionate amount of measures to give us the breathing space to work out what's happening with the Omicron variant. And I hope that colleagues will actually will see that, understand that, and none of us feel comfortable having to restrict people's freedoms, clearly. But we do have a difficult situation to get through over the next few weeks.
All right, let's move forward a week and the aftermath of the North Shropshire by-election. Let's suppose that the people of North Shropshire decide, to put it colloquially, this government tells so many lies, it's so bent it can't lay straight in bed, and the Conservatives lose. The Prime Minister would have to go then, wouldn't he?
Well, first of all, I would say to the people in North Shropshire, please don't sit there and have one day of thinking that you're going to send a signal and then have buyer's remorse for the next few years with a member of Parliament, a less effective member of Parliament from another party that you don't really believe in their values. But nonetheless, we know that it's a challenging situation that we've got to work really hard in North Shropshire and indeed the rest of the UK to build up confidence with electors, because we need to focus on the things that we're delivering for them today. The fact is that over the last week, for example, I've been working with the hospitality sector to try and get them out of the rent debts in a satisfactory way that they've built up over the pandemic. We've given £2 million we've recovered from businesses that haven't paid some of the lowest paid in the society there, the national minimum wage. So all of these things are going on, and we need to remind people of the good things that this government is achieving at the moment.
Reminding everyone you're Minister for London as well. Why do you suppose it is that, although it's improving, London has one of the highest unvaccinated rates across the whole of the country? Why might that be, Minister?
I think there's a number of different reasons. We've got a relatively young population. We were relatively slow to start, and there have been some situations in tackling various communities, which we've done a lot of community work to try and increase the take-up. So that's why I'd ask everybody to work together across London to make sure that you can reassure your neighbours, your communities, that the vaccination is safe, it's well tested, it's secure, it's been proven in millions and millions of people's arms around the world. And it is our single best way of making sure that we don't get hospitalisations and we don't further affect our economy.
You mentioned a youthful population in the city. Why do you think that plays into this particular area?
Because we obviously started with the older population, and came down. Whereas in some other countries, for example, they just threw it open to everybody, and so it's always difficult then when you're dealing with younger people who are busy doing other things, who don't have that same priority as, say, an 80 or 90-year-old when you look at this a year ago.
And again, as London Minister for London, you'll be aware there's another tube strike, the night tube strike, that kicks in as of today. And of course, this weekend, the TfL funding deal could expire. And there are even vague mutterings from London Mayor that he might close an underground line, possibly the Bakerloo. Minister?
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of the strikes, Sadiq Khan promised there wouldn't be any strikes. He's had more strikes than under Boris Johnson. The night tube needs to get open. If he's talking about
Probably
safety
fewer
for women in
parties,
particular,
but
we need the night tube open to give women and indeed all Londoners the safe choice. But in terms of the TfL deal, we're really prepared as government to work with the mayor. What we need, though, is him to come back with proposals of how he's going to raise finances, raise funding for TfL to make it self-sustainable on a long-term basis. But clearly, we want to do a deal. We do not want to see the tube lines closed, and we won't let that happen. So I think that's rhetoric, frankly. It's just open-air negotiations rather than actually getting around the table and having discussions.
Last question, Minister, and thank you for your extended time. Were Boris Johnson's standards advisor, Lord Geidt, to quit following accusations the Prime Minister misled him over the refurbishment of his Downing Street flat, how much further embarrassment would that heap upon Boris Johnson?
Well, I'm not aware of Lord Geidt's position, but I think the Prime Minister's been really clear in the investigation in terms of the fact that he didn't know who any of the underlying donors were for the refurbishment. I think that came out clearly in the result in the investigation.
And you're happy with that?
No
you believe that, do you?
Code.
You believe that the Prime Minister was unaware?
Yes, I do, because the system was worked under a blind trust. So whoever actually spent the money was up to the chairman of that trust, and the Prime Minister wouldn't have known about that.
Grateful for your time this morning. Thank you very much, Paul Scully, as Minister for London and Small Businesses, appearing here on LBC. We're at 2 minutes after 8. The news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, fresh allegations have emerged about one of 3 government gatherings being investigated over whether they breached COVID rules. It's reported the Prime Minister's